Beverly and Qamanirjuaq barren-ground caribou are two major herds in northern Canada. They were named after the lakes where they gave birth to their calves. Inuit, Dene, Cree, and Métis people from about 20 communities in the Kivalliq region of Nunavut, northern Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and the southeastern Northwest Territories have traditionally depended on the Beverly and Qamanirjuaq caribou for food, clothing, and materials for making handicrafts. Caribou are still the primary food source for many of these communities, and their northern indigenous cultures remain closely intertwined with the caribou. The caribou herds are faced with increased challenges and threats due to natural causes and human activities. More information is needed about the herds and pressures affecting them to determine what can be done to safeguard caribou and their habitat.
There used to be a lot of caribou. I remember when I was living in Fort Reliance and in the house, which was on a point, the caribou would fill up the whole bay, and there would be just tons and tons of caribou going through, traveling. Today, it's not like that. You sit on the porch and you'd be lucky if you see a small herd of caribou go by.
Thankfully, there are things we can do to help conserve caribou for the future. Caribou provide food and income, but there is also a strong cultural and spiritual connection between Indigenous peoples and these animals. That relationship is an important part of the traditional harvester's identity that has been passed down through many generations.
How useful was caribou then? It was very useful. We used it for food, clothing, sinew. We made rope. It was all useful. All the meat was edible. We ate the feet, meat, the bones, and so on.
Caribou is important to us because it's our life. So the caribou and the land is just like our table. The caribou and wildlife is just our food.
It's our primary food. That's how our forefathers survived. That's why I'm here. They survived from caribou and fish. We take and use all the meat and all the hide, and we used either that for mat or for clothing.
That's pretty much one of the very few things that is available in my region, in my area. We're so far inland, we don't get to see so much seals, beluga whales, and stuff like that.
Responsible hunters use all parts of the caribou and treat the animals with respect. This practice ensures that no part of the caribou is wasted.
Sometimes I'll follow caribou for 20 minutes trying to get a good shot. I'll stop 5 or 6 times and aim, trying to get that caribou right in the right location where there's nothing behind him, where he's not moving. You want to try to shoot him in the head or in the neck. You can also shoot him right in the lower ribs, right up, make a nice clean shot. The bullet will go right through.
I know the story there too, and I know from olden days. Don't chase caribou for nothing. Or skidoo, even nowadays I still talk to boys. Don't chase caribou for nothing. Don't go after them. If you want to get to them, go to the side. Don't go after them. Side, that's the only way they'll slow down. They know because they're not going after them. I tell them boys like that, so they start doing it, a lot of hunters. Even from outside hunters come to our town, I tell them that. Don't ever chase caribou from behind.
To maintain their cultures, Indigenous youth need to develop cultural and spiritual connections to the land and learn traditional customs and values. These lessons are increasingly difficult to pass on from generation to generation. While traditional hunters use everything they take, wastage of caribou does occur. Wastage needs to be minimized so it does not threaten the supply of caribou available to current and future generations.
Wastage is a huge problem. Wastage has always been around. As long as there's been caribou, there's always been wastage. It's like an elephant in a room. Nobody wants to talk about it, but it's got to be talked about it.
And some of the problems that I've seen that we're having is some of the younger hunters and some of the less experienced caribou hunters from the south, they wouldn't know that they actually hit that caribou, because when you hit a moose, it'll show signs because you're hitting it with such a big powered rifle. These caribou are shot with a lower caliber rifle, so a lot of times that they are going into the bush line and never retrieved. So it's the wounding loss that I really seen as a wastage. And I think if anything, both the department and the Qamanirjuaq board really have to, ramp up on that and teach some of these less experienced hunters of, if you're shooting at that caribou, there's about a 90% chance you're hitting that caribou, so you better be going into that bush line and tracking it.
A severe decline in caribou herd size can result in considerable hardship for traditional harvesters and their families, and, in the past, has caused serious famine. Even in modern times, hardship has resulted when caribou do not return to areas near communities that traditionally hunt them. Recently, there has been decreasing availability of caribou in some parts of the Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, and Nunavut. Hunters have had to travel farther to harvest caribou, and individuals and families have had to buy caribou or reindeer from other places and have them shipped to their communities. Buying and selling caribou meat through social media tools like Facebook may be increasing the harvest of caribou.
Guy will post on there, I want 4 caribou right now. So a guy will go out, shoot 4 caribou, and bring it back and sell it to him. And some of these animals are going from $250 to $500 per animal. So they're putting the price tag on these caribou's head at a very, very bad time for them. It's not everybody that's doing it. It's just a handful of individuals that are up there. And you can't really blame these people because there's no jobs up there. It's hard to raise a family and stuff. And so these people see it as a way to bring some money, some income into their homes to do it. But it's just a scale that is being done. Like a handful of people are really doing lots of it, while other people are doing just enough to feed their families and have some subsistence. So it's a pretty good sized problem. And to make the problem even worse, we have some air companies are flying the country food for free. So there's no charge to the hunter. He can take his meat and put it on a plane, or at a real reduced cost, like $1 a pound or something. So this really makes the problem a lot worse than what it is, because the people can bring this in and ship it to different regions in Nunavut.
Usually we just go by how our grandparents and the people that used to live out on the land is what they would tell us, is just to take what you need, and that's what we've been using. Everything is being put to use, everything's being brought back. The community, the hunters are being told to bring everything back, because like elders, they like to have certain parts of the caribou, and usually everything is brought back.
Nice clean load of meat. Looks good. This is what your sleigh load of meat should look like. Should be nice and clean. No snow on it. Should be all there. You just try to pile your meat up, stack it up, and if you got a real heavy load, try to put a lot of your hindquarters in the back, because that's where all the weight is. You got too much weight in the front, it's going to pound and you get a lot of blood in your meat. If you got lots of tarp, when you got a big load of meat, you always leave one fold of tarp over. So then when you put your own personal gear in there, you have something to cover your gear on top and it doesn't get full of blood. Sometimes people want hides, so you clean them up and bring them back to them and use them to sleep on, and they're pretty handy. If it gets real cold, sometimes we'll freeze them out flat and we'll stand them up right alongside the tent for a windbreak.
The economic value of caribou harvested from the Beverly and Qamanirjuaq herds about 10 years ago was estimated at about $20 million each year. That means the value of the caribou harvested from these two herds was worth about $200 million each decade. Indigenous peoples are the main harvesters of the Beverly and Qamanirjuaq caribou herds. Traditional caribou-using people harvest caribou for food and clothing. They share the caribou they harvest with family and friends, with elders, and those who otherwise would not have access to this highly valued food, and sometimes with other communities. When caribou are not available, severe hardship results. The cost to replace this important meat source with food shipped to caribou range communities from other places is terribly high, and most substitute foods are not nearly as nutritious or tasty as caribou. In addition, the cultural value of experienced hunters teaching youth how to hunt and learn traditional ways and values, as well as the spiritual importance of caribou, are immeasurable. In order to maintain healthy communities and their traditional cultures, caribou need to be accessible to people from across the caribou range. A key goal of caribou conservation is to continue to provide the opportunity to harvest caribou for current and future generations.
It's because of the connection, the spiritual connection that our people have with the land. It doesn't matter, that people don't go out there as often as they did in the past, because that's still our home.
One way to work toward ensuring there will be enough caribou in the future is to gather information about the harvest today.
Harvest numbers is a key to management of the herds. So we're trying to get the people to bring their harvest numbers forward. A lot of people don't want to bring them. They don't want to say what they're killing because they think they might impose future restrictions on them. But that's not the case. We want to use those numbers to manage the herd, to try to help it recover.
Sensitivity and respect are important for collecting harvest data from caribou hunters. The Beverly and Qamanirjuaq Caribou Board supports harvest data collection programs in part because they help to determine the total number of caribou required from the herds to sustain the basic needs of traditional caribou hunters, their families, and communities. It is important to know the number of caribou that communities need. If the harvest level that is safe for a herd falls below the collective needs level for communities that depend on that herd, hunters and their families will experience significant hardship.
In the past, we tried that monitoring caribou, but then it didn't turn out because, not too many people. I think it's because of the thing, if they overkill caribou, they might be penalized or something like that. In that case, they don't want to talk about it. They should at least, this is nothing harm in saying this is how many they killed, and that way we can monitor them,
I think that the communities realize that it's also important for the community to know how many caribou they need as a community so that everybody is fed, everybody is happy and healthy, and their cultural aspects and their spiritual aspects of their lives are taken care of. And so by collecting that harvest data, you get a basic needs level of that community. And so when the caribou populations start going down, then you can start to gauge the impact that will have on the community.
We all want the same thing, to have caribou today and in the future. Harvest information will help us to answer management questions and identify actions required to try to avoid hardship that could result from serious declines in the herds, and to decrease the length of time people may have to go without caribou if that situation occurs.
My child's 2 years old. Will he be able to go hunting for his kids? I want my kid to be able to have that choice if he wants to. Our future's changing. Our children's future's changing.
A caribou's life is not easy. Many things affect the caribou and their habitat over time. These things are both natural and human-caused. Because caribou migrate over long distances each year, they can experience effects from many factors.
There's a lot of factors influencing the decline of the caribou. There's predation, industry, disturbance, climate change. There's all these factors are all influencing the decline, but we don't know to what degree. We think climate change, looking at it closely, is really affecting some areas because of the drought conditions that are being produced over the last few years. Really hot summers, not very good summer vegetation for the animals to fatten up, and if a cow isn't fat in the fall, she won't get pregnant. So pregnancy rates are down because of poor food and disturbance. And there's a lot of studies being done on disturbance and that, but nobody can really put their real finger on what it is.
Natural factors that affect caribou include disease, parasites, predators, lightning-caused wildfires, and climate change. Human-caused effects on caribou result from wildfires, contaminants, disturbance, and changes to habitat. Disturbance and habitat loss occur on the ranges of the Beverly and Qamanirjuaq herds, mainly due to mineral exploration and mining development projects, and as a result of roads and wildfires.
The board is not against industry in any shape or form. We're here to advise and to see ways we can work with industry to make it better so that there is no further decline in the caribou. We know industry plays an important role, especially in the communities that they need the employment. Like in Nunavut now, they got millions and millions of dollars of resources in the ground. But to extract that resource in a meaningful way that it's not going to interfere or decimate the caribou in any way, but still the people have to have a job. They have to have ways to feed their family. But at the same time, we don't want to do it at the expense of the caribou, right? We want to have jobs for the people, and then same time food and caribou at the same time. Live that traditional lifestyle. Find that fine balance where we have a traditional lifestyle, but we still have a constant flow of caribou where they're not endangered in any way.
Although the Beverly and Qamanirjuaq Caribou Management Board, many northern communities, and regional organizations have spoken against allowing mineral exploration and development on calving and post-calving areas, these activities have sometimes been allowed in these important habitats.
They're not only speaking on behalf of future generations, but they're also speaking on behalf of those that can't speak. The water, the fish, the caribou, the wildlife, the wolves. Those are the things, the livelihood that's out there that we have to speak on behalf of. We have to protect that because they can't voice their concerns.
The effects of exploration activities can be significant themselves, but mineral exploration can also lead to mining developments with a whole new array and scale of effects, contributing to cumulative effects on caribou over time. Frequent low-level aircraft flights, construction of roads and airstrips, travel by supply trucks on all-weather and winter roads, mine construction and operation, and pollution of land and water can all have negative effects on caribou. The main issue is that the combined effects from many factors operating across the caribou ranges, both human-caused and natural, can disturb caribou and cause short and long-term changes in their behavior, habitat, and food. Migrating animals accumulate these effects throughout their lives. These changes can affect the chance that cows will get pregnant and give birth successfully, and that their calves will survive, thrive, and reproduce themselves one day.
Predation's a big one. We're finding that the predator, the grizzly bears and wolves are moving more and more out onto the calving grounds and killing more calves at the peak time when the calves are being born. Whereas before, the wolves used to hang back and they wouldn't access the calving grounds at that time, and it seemed like the caribou had a better chance of survival. Whereas the wolves now are following them out and staying in the calving grounds, so they're killing a lot of calves.
Well, traditions are respecting all kinds of wildlife, that's including caribou, and respecting water crossings and post-calving ground, like it's because that calving ground is a hospital for the caribou. There's stuff like exploration camps that are, that I guess don't really understand the importance of the location. It's nice and clean, it's nice and quiet. There's special plants, there's special habitat. Our elders and local people have always told us, keep the land clean, don't build any cabins, houses, even set up tents in that area because it's special.
The Beverly and Qamanirjuaq caribou herds are facing increasing challenges and threats. By working together, we can help the herds to continue and be healthy and available to people who depend on them for food and cultural survival.
We want to preserve it. We want to keep it there. Later on, when I'm older, it might not be there. I want it to be there. What will it do if you drill a hole in the ground? If the caribou die, we die too. We live off of it. We don't want that. We don't want that. We want the caribou, we want the land. We want to preserve it. All I want to say is that I want the land to be here.